Beste kijker, ben jij fan van ons kanaal en wil je ons steunen in ruil voor exclusieve content? Meld je dan aan via onderstaande link of stuur een mailtje naar redactie@denieuwewereld.tv.
Welcome to the new world. Thorough conversations in disruptive times. My name is Ad Verbrugge and I'm the anchor of this talk show that we will offer you, and we developed, in fact, in cooperation with consultancy firm Inopay and the honors program of the University of Utrecht. In fact, this program is part of a bigger series called Sustainable Digitalization or Digital Sustainability, in which we reflect on the pros and cons of modern technology on our society. In this program, we will discuss the impact, the huge impact, I would say, of artificial intelligence on our societies and on our educational system, as we witness, for example, in the open source application ChatGPT. That's the first topic. What is happening with our society because of this radical invention? The second topic, I would say, is even as important, is the question of regulation. The regulation at the EU level of our, you can say, digital universe. And we will focus on the so-called digital wallet. What are the risks of it? What are the ways that we can use it in a proper way? What are the ethical considerations when we introduce that kind of wallet in our digital universe? And we will discuss these important topics with a lineup of 4 guests, and I'm honored to have you here in the program today. Experienced guests and experts in the field. With on my right hand, Julia Janssen. She's an artist, so she has a fresh look on what is going on, and she's also working on the impact of technology on our society. Beside her, Yuri van Geest, and you're a free mind, a system thinker, I can call you, I think, and one of the founders of, what was it? The university, the Singularity University, yeah, some time ago. Yes. Then besides him is sitting Toon Segers. And he's the founder of Roseman Labs. And you can tell us something about it and what your business is later on, maybe. And finally, but not least, last and not least, is Vincent Janssen, partner of Inopay and also a specialist on digitalization and this digital wallet. No family of Julia, but the same last name. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'll start with Yuri. I received a message from you some days ago, and you said, for the first time in my life, I'm really worried about what's going on right now. You took a deep look at ChatGPT and all the technologies that are being developed right now. You say, I'm really worried. And it reminded me of course, of the latest manifesto that Elon Musk brought out, in which he said that we need a moratorium for at least half a year to reflect on what is going on and what are the risks that we are dealing with right now. So maybe the first question, just give us a brief outline, because you're a specialist in the field, and not all of our students are aware of what is going on. I think most of them might have worked with ChatGPT right now, but what is going on, and why are you so worried right now?
Yeah, so we see the rise of large language models, which is nothing really new. It's like 6 years old. But since the launch of ChatGPT in December, November, we see a significant impact on all domains, all organizations, institutes, all departments, all functions, to a certain degree, less or more, but there's impact everywhere, right? And it's, if you think about, if you zoom out, if you look at AI, artificial intelligence, now we're following this for 15 years now, it's all about the 5 Ps, right? So the benefits are more productivity, more participation, co-creation between producer and consumer, more prediction, more prevention, and more personalization. Now, this is all now happening as we speak, the last 5 months.
That sounds good, isn't it?
Yeah, that's amazing, but so that's the good side. On an individual level, organizational level, societal level, where we are able to create new systems, cheaper healthcare, better education, better policing, better food production. That's all amazing.
At least that's the promise, better education.
Yeah, but that's possible. I can explain you why. I know where you're coming from, the Bon. But the downsides, because the speed of change is so high, I'm learning 6 hours a day now to keep up. That's the pace of change. And still I'm lagging behind. So this is an exponential technology, even beyond faster than exponential. And we have institutions of 200 years old, and a brain is 50,000 years old. So we have to keep it together. That's the problem I see. So at a societal level, for example, to make it tangible, today we have 100,000 people, according to our Secret Service in Holland, who are against the elite of Holland, right? It's a conspiracy. There's a lot of distrust, right? And I expect, because of artificial intelligence, because of fake news, fake information, fake expertise, that in the next 2 years, this group of 100,000 people might increase to 500,000, or maybe 1 million.
But is this simply a speculation, or do you have really an indication that that's going on?
No, it's common sense, logical reasoning, because if you are, let's say, not part of society, and you see this change coming, AI, it's dislocation, unemployment, 300 million people will be unemployed globally, at least Goldman Sachs research. This will also be impactful in Holland. People are scared of AI. They see fake news. They are threatened by AI because of jobs. So this is a very toxic cocktail, in my view, that will amplify the already current existing distrust against society and the government.
But just one question, because we hear it all the time, that the introduction of a new technology will give a rise to unemployment.
But this is different.
But this is different. This time it's different. Why is it different? Just try to make clear why this time is different.
It's different because this is the fastest adopted internet technology ever. In 2 months, 100 million users. Now probably already 200 or 300 million. We've never seen this before in terms of speed, adoption, scale. And also the breadth and the depth of the impact.
What kind of jobs are at stake right now?
You can better ask what is not at stake, but if you do physical labor, you are safe. Like
a plumber.
Hairdressers, plumber, you're safe. While if you are an artist, now, you are impacted a lot. CEOs are impacted a lot already. Knowledge workers, in architects, accountants, of course. But let's say it will start with the simple and middle level knowledge work, white collar work. That will be impacted at first, already this year. And also, let's say the higher level white collar work will also be impacted to a certain degree. So how do we stabilize society, right? Because this is, I've never seen this before in my whole life, the speed.
Yeah, this the kind of worry Elon Musk was talking about?
Yeah, also, I've read, of course, I fully agree with them. Before the launch of the petition, a few weeks ago, I told you, yeah.
Okay. Julia, you were looking at society from an artistic point of view, and you're working on the field of the impact on technology. How do you look at the current developments of AI and the ChatGPT?
Well, I do understand the kind of threatening feeling towards the technology, but I also feel it's similar to every tool that we kind of developed in technology. And we always, like, for example, with the invention of the photo camera, we also thought, like, well, it might become, like, painters unemployed or unnecessary. But I think also it's true, it will be a threat to a lot of jobs, but it will also create a lot of new jobs. I mean, we also have to kind of have people who are very good at setting the parameters, for example, or operating the tools. So there I see some kind of new challenges also for artists. And therefore as well, the system is now learning from existing data, from existing patterns. So therefore it can never become like, you know, outruling the artist at this point. I'm not sure where it goes. That might develop, of course. But I also see it as a tool, and I think it's also kind of an expansion of creativity. I think it's also kind of interesting to see how it's opening up the arts. For example, for a lot of young people, I think that, for example, a museum or a gallery is very kind of intimidating. It's very kind of a white cube. And if these kind of technologies are opening up the field of art for more people, I think that's also kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. How do you, as an artist, work with, for example, AI, or are you not working with it right now? Or how are you reacting on or responding on it as an artist? Is it part of a constellation, or what are you doing with it?
Well, so I design interactive and performative installation, but more about the impact of technology. So I'm not using the technology per se. I try to also
Can you give us an example?
Of course, yeah. My latest installation, for example, is called Dear Data, How Do You Decide My Future? And it is an installation I made for Lowlands Festival last year. And I printed almost 4,000 pieces of my own information, my own personal data, on ping pong balls to give data a physical shape, because it's so opaque for people to understand.
That's fascinating, because I play table tennis. So
I became very good at beer pong.
Okay. Oh, that's the difference. Yeah, beer pong.
No, but it's interesting because I feel like, for example, like this whole installation, or it's part of a 4-layered installation about the whole decision-making process of AI. But this part, it maps the whole infrastructure of how Meta, so the mother company of Facebook, collects data beyond its own platform. So what they do, they create things like authentication by Facebook, or they do plugins in all types of websites or apps to extract data without you even having a Facebook account. And this installation just shows a little segment of a segment of a segment of the endless piles of data that Meta is collecting about me without me having Facebook, or without me using Facebook anymore. That's nuance.
and that's a way to make people aware of what is actually going on with the data, or what?
So I think I started as an artist to make people more aware, to make kind of the hidden infrastructures of the internet more tangible, more visible, more understandable. It's very kind of complex. People feel also very detached from the topic. And I think it's very interesting, but also necessary to have more feeling with, not necessary to be like a programmer or, you know, like operating technology, but understand how it works. Like how, for example, if a data set is not trained properly or collected properly, there can be a bias in a system. And what kind of consequences does that have on society? So
awareness is one of your goals.
Yeah, I think it started with awareness.
It starts with awareness.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe about the topic of regulation. Musk talks about this moratorium and the need of it right now, because of the uncertainty of the way things develop. Of course, that puts the question of regulation in the front, you can say. How do you look at the development of systems like ChatGPT, for example? Is there a need of regulation on a European level?
I think probably there is. So first statement, regulation is and will always be lagging if the pace of change is this, then either we need to AI our legislation and ask ChatGPT what it should be, or we are lagging. And I think also it is probably difficult to regulate algorithms in themselves, or the thing that underlies this artificial intelligence. What we can do is the points where they touch our world. There you can do the regulation. We cannot regulate Bitcoin by itself, but we can regulate where Bitcoin enters our existing world. So I think that is what regulations or regulators are, or should be contemplating at least. Where is this affecting us? Where do we already have rules that say that stuff is illegal? So deep fakes, in a lot of ways, are legal already, and we have the tools to combat it. Maybe not the most efficient ones. But now, given this change and the space of change, what new stuff is happening that touches our actual world, and we should consider of regulating? Does the answer a bit?
Yes. Maybe one example. I think it was about 2008 or something that the iPhone was introduced, and I was one of the early adapters. I've always been a fan of Apple. I used to work on the small computers they have lovely Greek keys. So I use a lot of Greek in my texts. But anyway, now we have this discussion on a legislative basis to you can say to put a limit to the way the phone is used. Also, the physical use of the mobile phone, for example, by children at school, and in France it is already forbidden. It has something to do with the impact of this technology on the way we develop ourselves on a psychological level. Marshall McLuhan talks about the amputation. Technology that has also the power to amputate the way our senses work and the way we think. We of course, we're dealing with the rise of all kind of attention disorders, and one of the reasons that, of course, this topic is so hot right now is exactly the impact of this technology on our, you can say, on our psychological well-being. Is this also, you remember maybe, is this also the way you look at this development of, for example, chat, the risk of the amputation?
Yeah. So in the core, it's a hallucination engine, so it makes mistakes, right? Sometimes. Less so over time, I assume, but that's a pattern. So you have to be mindful. You cannot just outsource your thinking, because then you become vulnerable. And so who are you as a human being, right? If we increasingly outsource to AI, what is our role, our identity, our value add? So we have to be mindful and be critical towards the system, to think for ourselves, even though we can co-create with AI. That's important. And I do confirm there's a lot of mental health issues, mostly surrounding social media, as we all know, right? Watch Scott Galloway and all the channels. It's very discomforting for 10 years already. Young women, young males as well. It's horrible. So social media is quite evil at the personal level. But AI is able to transmute the downsides of social media. Mm-hmm. Less polarization, more nuanced truths. So that's great. But the AI also creates new mental health risks by outsourcing, amputation, as you said. Maybe there's a tendency to accept biases, discrimination within the AI system, right? So we have to be mindful of that. And also, the bigger question is the dehumanization. If we increasingly interact with AI, let's say 6 hours a day like me, it's not healthy, right? Because you have no awareness of body language, social conventions, you become scared of people because technology is predictable and humans are unpredictable, right? So a lot of issues around it.
Yeah, a few years ago I wrote a book in which the topic of disembodiment was a central topic. Dus exactly the ontlijving or this disembodiment. Toon, how do you look at this, the current developments?
Yeah, I come from an area, my area of expertise is privacy technology.
Yeah.
And there we try to marry technology with control. We facilitate collaboration, but the subjects stay in control. And I think that's maybe a perspective I want to bring in this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by what's possible. The engineers in my company use GitHub Copilot to help them be more productive, and it helps them tremendously. They're super excited. I'm a mathematics PhD candidate, and I'm using the ChatGPT as a co-pilot to have a conversation, if my supervisor is not there, to have on a good level, a conversation about very deep mathematical topics. So I'm extremely fascinated by what's possible. On the other hand, you have now AI labs and people like Elon Musk and Jutkowski, I believe his name is, coming out that AI is going to destroy us all. And I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but if people who are really deep into this field are saying sort of, if they are surveying among themselves that 50% believe that there's at least a 2% or a 10% chance that it will have a catastrophic effect on society, then when I read those things, as a technologist, I get very scared. Like you, like, okay, this is maybe a once-in-a-lifetime moment.
And they seem to know what they're talking about.
They know what they're talking about. Yeah. They are also financially, economically sort of, this needs to become a good thing, not a bad thing, but they are also very clear that they are worried. And then I think we need to start thinking about how do we get the citizens back in control. Like we do in our privacy technology space, it's possible to marry advancement with control, but we have to start thinking about it. I don't believe that a moratorium is possible even.
No.
I would hope we could stop time and sort of have a pause, a mental pause, and sort of contemplate, but we are not in that luxury. So I saw one of the sort of smart people talk about saying, the governments may be the first, as a large procurer of technology, they could at least enforce norms. That sort of they contract Microsoft and they contract IBM and they contract these large tech vendors. I think they can be the vanguard of putting norms on technology. It's that they do that also in other areas, so they are a good sort of the buyer and the first placer of value on these developments. But yeah, I think so. Control is something we should think very hard about as technologists.
Yeah, I think the fascinating thing of this technology, and maybe also the main difference with former technologies, is exactly this ability of the technology itself to control or to direct. Even when we're talking about, for example, the cars and that can drive themselves. Even when I take a look at my, how do you call it, the TomTom, the driving system, then I already experience this amputating power. Because I'm not looking at the cart anymore, and I have not the same orientation of the environment. So something is going on, and in fact the engine is taking the control from me. So when we reflect on this development, Vincent, when you think about regulation, what is this topic of control and being in control? When you take a look at regulation,
yeah,
how important is this notion?
I I think, and maybe also if you take the TomTom or the navigation example, being in control, or at least having the sense that if you want to step in, that is possible.
Yeah.
Then I think if that is sort of control, you have the brake to it, or you can intervene. Then we are willing, if it gives us convenience, to give quite some control away. So I'm very pleased that I don't have to plan my journeys with a map in the morning to figure out where in what city I need to be. It helps me. If I see there's a roadblock or I change my mind, I'm still driving at this point. But what the next step will be, and what are...
You can also say that's exactly the seductive nature of these kind of technologies. They give us comfort, and they empower us in a way.
Then maybe it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy already, because then we say, hey, there's something that started long ago, and there's only one path, and it is more giving away. And I think at this point in time in the physical world, and also what are we going to connect this AI to in that physical world, there's still choices.
Yeah.
The algorithm will be smarter, but it's not controlling every device or every car in the world. So there's the choices, and their regulators should have an opinion, and there we should probably hit brakes and not start connecting this new technology to everything in the physical world. But there I'm a bit, like Julia said, we're not beyond the tipping point, is my feeling, that this is beyond repair. So I feel we, maybe too broad as humans versus algorithms, we are still in control, and we should be mindful.
Yeah, but one thing for sure, as Toon mentioned, we just have to go on.
It will go on.
We will go on. I mean, but even a moratorium is not a very realistic proposal.
It is like saying, I don't want there be new recipes for crystal meth. Exactly. There will be new recipes for crystal meth. So that we cannot control. We can control that the ingredients for crystal meth are hard to come by. We can control that it's difficult in physical places to have enough room to create it. And once it's out there, we can manage the output. We cannot control the recipe.
Tom, yes.
And I think, so on the topic of regulation, also what I think is a beautiful piece of legislation that we built in Europe, and that is that sort of embodies our European values, is the GDPR. That's also an export product. So if we're trying to control this technology, what I think is really smart is to be principle-based. We have European values, we have autonomy as people, we respect each other and so on. And if you look at the GDPR, it's really about dignity, privacy, of course, control for the subject and so on. It leaves a lot of the implementation to the companies and organizations, but it's still, and if you properly enforce that kind of laws, principle-based laws, I think you are on the right track. So maybe, and it's also describing how to control it and how to implement it will take a long time, and everybody will shoot it down, and especially by a technology that moves as fast as this. But principles we all know. We have a pretty good understanding of what our European values are. So I think that I'm not a regulatory expert, but I really like how it's done in the GDPR. It is also a very popular law outside of the European zone. It's sort of copied everywhere. So I think this sort of value-based, principle-based regulation is maybe the fastest and also the most value-based way of attacking such a problem. So,
yeah, Julia, how do you look at this question of control and? Because it has not only to do with the architecture of the digital universe itself, but also with the way we live with it, and you can say the ways we behave and we react on the things that happen to us.
Yeah, lots of thoughts actually here during the other people speaking. I mean, it's very interesting when we talk about the for example, the destruction of humanity, there's kind of, what kind of level are we talking about? Destruction is very also an open word. What do we mean by that? And I feel like with AI, what we kind of want to do with all these technologies, we want to outsmart our own intuition, but we also want to optimize everything towards a certain level that I don't know. And I think it's kind of interesting in one way, but also, what does it mean to be human if we want to optimize and outsmart and outsource our choices in every kind of way? What we, for example, now see, I'm developing a new project for the Biennale in Venice in a couple of weeks on this topic, so I'm very excited to talk about it. It's kind of interesting that we, for example, now want to outsmart our choices by percentages of certainty, for example. We see that very clearly in Netflix. You want to kind of open this platform and think like, oh, well, this is recommended by 92% to me, must be fine. Or there's so much content, I don't want to like search forever, so we'll just deal with whatever, you know, is kind of convenient to click on. And of course, that's not only kind of negative, it's kind of also quite easy. All these platforms are aiming for frictionlessness. Spotify also does that very cleverly. You know, you just click on a genre or a song, and then you kind of, you know, go with the waves of that kind of genre, and then you will be kept kind of happy for a long while, for a long time. But what will happen if we kind of see that same system, that same kind of platformization, frictionlessness in, for example, also our choice in education or in love or in friends or, I don't know, maybe in your career? What will happen if you, for example, you're a 5-year-old kid and then you will have a percentage of like, well, you want to be a ballet dancer, but statistical, it might be like 8% happening for you. Like, will you not go on that path? How do we let these kind of systems determine our lives in that kind of manner? And I think that's the kind of path that we're on. So I don't see ChatGPT as a threat to labor so much, but more as a kind of, what does it mean to be human in a way, in a world that is so determined by data, statistics, and probabilities? Because I think we will be kind of a less interesting species in the end.
We become boring.
We become boring. We become all the same. Same kind of, you know, very kind of predictable, but also operable kind of humans, species. And I think for the past, I don't know, thousands of years, we've kind of aimed to develop ourselves into kind of smarter humans, smarter species. And now we're at this kind of moment in time where we kind of have the best and smartest people in the world having us click on an advertisement and spend their whole dedicated life towards that, and then make you kind of consume longer, see longer, scroll longer. And that's kind of the aim, and then optimize everything into some kind of frictionlessness. I'm just fascinated by this. I mean, I'm not sure I'm against it. I find it also kind of nice in lots of ways. But how this defines our nature, I think that's kind of interesting to see. And also, with the aspect of control, I think we're letting us being controlled more than we want to be, for example. Yeah, by these technologies. Like my dad for now bought a Tesla recently for a lot of good reasons, but it's also the device also controlling him in a way that he will never cross the speed limit once more, because then it will be raised in the insurance. So now he pays a very low fee. And of course, it's kind of nice to be obedient to, you know, the rules, but it also kind of gets away of, the kind of nuances of, you know, tricking the system, just kind of, you know, go a little bit over the speed limit or something like that. And like, where does that end? I think that's kind of, it's not a defined rule or a defined line, but I think we really need to kind of define our relationship with data and live.
Yeah, but you can say it's the ultimate consequence of a consumer society in which is frictionlessness and convenience and comfort is one of the goals and one of the driving factors in the development of technology itself. So it's the natural result, as it was predicted, maybe in a way in a movie like The Matrix. That in the end, we can sleep all the time and have a good time. I mean, and that's the negative effect. So there's this danger of massification or of mass formation or de-individualization, you can say. But what would be the antidote to that, or because we have to deal with it in a way, and not simply by regulating the architecture, but also by our educational system, of the way we raise people. Yuri, yeah.
Yeah, so
I know it's one of your issues right now, and the spiritual development.
yeah, exactly. So we have domesticated plants and animals 10,000 years ago. Now we are domesticating ourselves, right? Humans, to a certain degree.
Yeah, by the engine.
Yeah. So and that's a key risk, societal risk, but probably won't happen. People will revolt. So what I envision is the opposite, long term, right? I think humans are best at being human, AI does the rest, right? So if you just outsource to AI, you are commodity, right? There's no differentiation. So you have to amplify your unique human skills to have meaning, purpose, and also value in terms of economy. That means immanence, consciousness, bold visions, creativity, let's say the soft factors of being human. So imagination, above all.
Adventure.
Yes, yeah.
Unpredictability.
Yeah, exactly.
Doubts, yeah.
So artists are in a good place. The artist way.
And we'll die in the end, so that's for sure.
So I think we have to move up the chain of Maslow, right? Self-realization, even beyond, transcendence. So I expect a lot of a huge uptick in terms of interest for nature, regeneration, indigenous cultures, consciousness. Wouter van Noort, that he's on spot on, he's a close friend of mine, of course. That will all skyrocket, right? Philosophy, history. How do you create unique questions, prompts for the AI? The big idea is the human aspect, also in the future, right? The big question mark. And so we have to amplify our unique human skills that AI is not able to copy.
Yeah, but the question remains, of course, what society will look like. Do we have a picture of that already?
I have a picture, but it's of course, there are many scenarios, right? All the stuff I do is towards, let's say, a spiritual, ecological, social civilization at the global scale, right? And I think we are able to get there, but it's not certain. It's possible.
One of the fascinating things is where we talked about our society as a knowledge society. And you say now exactly this knowledge we are outsourcing right now, or and is in a way you can say that the knowledge workers are attacked by this and not the plumber. Well, does that imply that we can see a new kind of economy in which, for example, craftsmanship or etc. becomes more important once more? Would that be a realistic scenario, or are we just?
It will be a mixture, in my view, right? So artisanship will be on the rise, obviously, right? Because it's authentic and it can be copied by 3D and 4D printers.
Every city having their own beer and.
Yeah, but I think it will be
doing something with your hands, and
I think we move from hands to mind, to brain, to heart. Increasingly, we will see jobs in terms of heart, from the heart, caring, the human interaction, the wisdom, the bold creativity, the visions, the consciousness work.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to make a living. You have to organize your life, and you're dealing with technology all the time. So. It cannot simply be
I think the piece of the puzzle, as Sam Altman has been, many people at Civil University also 10 years ago, we have to move to a system of universal basic income, of negative tax income to stabilize society. Rutger Bregman, right? That's probably unavoidable long term, right? So, and it's possible because AI will create such productivity boosts that we're able to subsidize it, right? It's possible, but we are not there yet, but that's a likely scenario.
Yeah, but the question of meaning remains. That's one of
meaning is about consciousness, right? The internal journey.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, because especially like healthcare is a subject of like a very aggressive force of Apple and Google, who are now kind of trying to dominate the whole field of health healthcare, and that also really changes not only the field itself, but also the values of the field. It also has to become like where care is not about optimizing and doing things fast. It becomes so when technology is kind of evolving because the values kind of changes there. So that's kind of interesting how that will work.
Attention is very important.
Yeah,
for
sure.
example, when Toon, you mentioned that you're working with ChatGPT right now and even making a fast progress in your PhD studies.
Not fast enough.
But progress, yes, yeah. So what are the good examples? Can you give me some other examples of the way it works out well?
Yeah, so what I was fascinated about, somebody was a fellow in AI at Eindhoven University of Technology. He sort of articulated the term emergence to me. I was not familiar with the idea, but sort of this non-linear switch of, on one hand, AI are stochastical parrots. They just parrot back what you teach them. On the other, now if you go beyond a certain size, it starts to almost like reason, like a human.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's incredibly valuable. So I consider myself a knowledge worker. The people in my team are knowledge workers. I think we are in a business, in an innovative business, so we will not lose our jobs because we need productivity to ship. But I can see that this sort of is attacking the knowledge worker, for sure. I really liked your point that there's the silver but where are the gaps in the labor market at the moment? It's in healthcare, it's in education, vocational jobs. So if there's a better, and I think that we see the early stages of that trend, if there's an appreciation for imagination, empathy, because we need those things in education, in healthcare, we need imagination, we need empathy and so on. So I think if people are, maybe knowledge workers, are starting to pick up appreciation for these other new skills, and we as a society see that we need to, as humans, we need to start competing on developing our empathy and our imagination, because that's where the scarcity is, and that's where the opportunities are. I think that's maybe a bit of a silver lining to this whole discussion.
Well, what does that mean for the university, for example?
Yeah,
because we educate people as knowledge workers over here.
Yeah, how that will dramatically change.
Yes?
I don't know, but I can imagine that.
Because when you take a look in your field, you can say you have to be very good and be a specialist on a certain subject, and then you can use the technology in a particular. But once you're on a more middle level, then the engine can do the job even better.
Flipping the classroom, this was sort of this great effect of we had technology, and now one teacher could reach have much more tailored approach to his or her students. Yeah, we're now in the extreme of flipping the classroom. Everybody has a teacher, a co-pilot.
Yeah,
I think that's a good side, and I hope universities will embrace the good side as long as we're controlling the bad side. But at the same time, I think we need to be mindful that imagination and empathy and those kind of things will matter more if you graduate. You better have also a lot of those skills and sort of relating yourself to the new economy. Universities train you for the economy, and imagination is probably.
Is it?
But suddenly pops to mind that probably what will with the intention and the heart, but also the physical presence, having conversations. So if we examine papers that people submit to you via email, that's completely different than sitting down with them and having a level oral examination on a subject.
Yeah, we're still doing oral. I'm still doing oral examination.
I think
it's very important once more, and even writing down.
But maybe if we don't need to spend 6 hours a day keeping up, because that is a world that is just happening. Maybe we have plenty of more time to do this and have these kinds of conversations, explore a bit. Maybe your subject is getting a huge boom just because there's now time and all the other stuff is taken care of, and we can go to bars and have good conversation.
Yes, yeah.
Well, if I can
Julia,
because the one thing that comes to mind when hearing you is like capitalism. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing, right? In the end, like our values cannot be empathy and not be growth when capitalism is leading, because that needs growth, that needs shareholder interest, and everything's operating in that manner. What if we graduate with values like, for example, not harvest as much data and see what you can get out of it, but like add value to the world in a completely different manner? I think that should be the baseline instead of like this never-ending growth.
Oh, that's a fascinating other topic, because now you're saying, in fact, that maybe this development implies that we cannot continue to base our economy on capitalism.
Yes.
Well, I mean, still, there's not a good alternative, but it's true.
But because the alternative is also quite...
Well, I think that the core of a lot of challenges that we're facing is manifested in capitalism.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So,
but of course, capitalism is related to individual freedom, to entrepreneurship, and the alternative is not very, what would I say, attractive.
No, true. No, that's an answer.
And at the same time, I'm criticizing capitalism as well. So don't get me wrong, but. We tried once those systems that are blocking the capitalists, you can say, seduction, but they turned out to become very, very oppressive.
Yeah, but I think it's also kind of a language or a definition discussion, because we define now that success, for example, is a certain salary or a certain status, but it can also be, like a certain level of I don't know, sustainability, or that is not there yet. It's expressed mainly in money, or in power, or in land owning, or this very kind of common sense of what that should be.
Yes.
But I think that we need to rethink, also within the model of current capitalism.
Yeah, the question of regulation, because it's in a way it's related to this critique of capitalism. We already see that now, for example, in the rise of compliance, that the capitalist society is not working in its regular way anymore. When the core of our system, the capital markets, are become very regulated in the last 10, 15 years, especially after the crisis in 2008, and the banking systems have been really changed. But still the danger is there. But this topic of regulation, and you're working on the digital wallet. Maybe you can give us a short a sketch of what this digital wallet is about, and what the importance is of the introduction of this.
So the digital wallet is about digital identity, and it is about this vision of the European Commission that there's such a thing as a digital market. We can have a whole debate on what that exactly is or should be. But to be, as each and every citizen in Europe, to be able to interact and manifest yourself in that digital market, it makes sense to have a form of identity.
Is it only about the market?
Yeah, sorry, but it's a good thing. So it's public-private. Of course, it's also in the interaction with governments. And that is at some point where it has its root, but it is about maybe digital societies, a better world. And currently the Commission says, well, there's all this potential. We see it a lot in the private market, but it doesn't happen in Europe at scale. So these identities are not there, and that is sort of limiting the growth of our digital society. I think that is a starting point where today we see more and more that regulators are sort of product developers in a sense. They share a lot of similarities with, we work for banks a lot, where if you look at the product development department of a bank or the innovation department of a bank, there's people thinking, what do we need in the market to progress our products and services? Now there's civil servants in Brussels doing the same. So where I earlier said legislation is lagging, I think it still is, but there's also a sort of proactive force in legislation going on now, saying we want to control what kind of services are in the market that empower us, enable us.
This digital wallet is part of this, you can say, infrastructure that governments are developing right now.
Yeah, as an infrastructure, and individual member states would need to issue on that infrastructure.
Can you give us an example of the way it works? What is
what it will
wallet?
be, and that is to consumers, it will not be that new. So if we in the Netherlands know DigiD or similar apps, it will manifest itself quite similar to such an app. Something that you can use to identify with. There are some additional attributes in.
And when are we going to use it? When you want to buy something, or what way are we going to use it?
So the idea is in every use case that you do in a digital society where you want it. It's an optional thing. Mm-hmm. So it is for you. If you want to use it, you can have this digital identity that you can use to log into an e-commerce website, to get personalized offerings, and then conduct your journey. But it can be used to log into your internet banking. It can be used to file your taxes, book whatever, read whatever. Everything where you have a login today definitely should be able to be replaced by that wallet. But it should, as a wallet, it should carry everything that you have in a physical world and more. So it is this huge physical wallet that also contains your diplomas and every credential that you harvested along the way of your life. And
now Yuri was talking about the rise of conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
I think one of the things people are really scared about is exactly the misusage of technologies like that.
This is about control again. So it is about protection, data protection, and I really liked what Toon said about the GDPR, and that is principle-based. We have that already, and of course that applies also to the wallet. And you should be in control. There should not be entities, people, or businesses or government without a reason that are in that system looking at what you're doing. There should not be an accumulation of data at certain places. So that is all sort of from the value perspective already taken care of and built into the system. And then you still need to believe that. So if you don't want to believe that or believe in conspiracy theories and this is all a plot, then I'm not going to convince you. But if we take the principles from the law and see what is happening in the design now, this is a proper system that is designed according to that values and gives you control. Then if you lose your phone or give someone else access to the phone, exactly the same happens as today with your wallet. I will use it and I will do whatever with your wallet that I want. And the biggest risk might be that the scope is so big.
What do you mean by that?
There can be so much more in that thing than is today in your wallet. We don't know what yet. The future will show us. And your wallet is there and cannot now be used at the other side of Europe. And this digital thing, one of the dangers might be that people get used to this kind of digital identification. Yep. And take, for example, the discussion about the QR code during the COVID times, that it becomes normal that when you want to go to a bar or when you want to go to buy this, then you have to check in with your wallet, and the government is regulating the way the wallet works. So in the end, you become this very passive, or even maybe from a commercial perspective, exploited individual that is exactly doing what the system wants from it. Julia, how do you look at this development of the wallet?
Well, I think it's especially interesting thinking about like digital identities, like for example now how they are constructed. they're based on so much data that they've collected about us without us knowing what data is collected, how that's kind of combined, what kind of definitions or what kind of profiles come out of these things. So I think kind of the lack of understanding what our digital identity truly is, that's for me kind of a challenge in there. Like there's not such a thing as a universal identity on the internet, for example. You cannot say, like during the day you can switch so many roles kind of intuitively. You can kind of go from student to lover to friend to kids to parent, like, you know, very rapidly and without thinking about it. But online you are what the data defines about you, what you are, and what the interest of that particular profile is. Or, you know, what kind of models are applied, how these kind of data came to be, what kind of training system is behind it. There is no control over that. There's not a say in that. And I think that's a real challenge also with this kind of new e-wallet.
But maybe the e-wallet can also protect you against this exploitation. How do you take a look at that?
Yeah, it's both, right? It's plus and minus, like all the topics. What I like about it, similar to blockchain, but it's against piracy, fraud, corruption, right? So I think that's a huge benefit, right? At the personal level, maybe a larger scale as well. So that's great. And it gives you a seamless experience. It's more comfortable, etc. But the downsides are also real and concern me, right? In terms of, now, do we get a social rating system long term? Or, for example, or are we maybe, now look at Trudeau, right? They block your bank account because you are protesting against the government. I think, well, that's not the world I want to live in, right? Or your QR code example, nudging people, right? I don't think that's a healthy. It's avoidable, but the way to avoid these downsides is to have a good long-term public debate with a lot of smart people and experts. Thinking beforehand we implement this.
How do you look at the level of the debate right now concerning these technologies?
It needs to improve and fast.
And when you take a look at the parliament, for example?
I'm not really comfortable about what they are talking about. I think if they are feeling the urgency, let's say I have a year already, they would ramp up their debates already. It's not happening. Not in the side rooms, not in the public room.
Toon?
Yeah, I see at the European level, I see I trust government. And at the European level, I see a lot of technocrats who are really having sort of our agency and our sort of autonomy and our good things in mind. So, for example, about I'm not tracking the wallet regulation, but I'm seeing them, they want to build a European standard because they don't want American big tech to become even more dominant. So to the point of capitalism, I think what I like about the European regulators is that they're always trying to sort of strike down and make big tech in Europe at least under control. Because I think the problem...
Well, that's a noble motive, I would say.
That's a noble motive, yeah. And I think, and sort of what we at all costs should avoid is that large corporations get an unhealthy relationship to the government or even are above the government. In some cases, these things happen. And I think especially with like these big corporations controlling these big language models, because these are economies of scale plays. If you don't have a big data center and if you don't have all the data in the world, you're not going to win. So it's a very monopoly stimulating situation. What I like about Europe, and I think that I think at the national level, I think at the policy expert level, policymakers, lots of experts, really good. In the parliament, less so. And again, sort of policymakers or sort of ambtenaren at European level, also they're looking at the right through the right lens. But I'm still very afraid that you can predict the next monopoly, and that will be OpenAI, or it's now Microsoft. They have all the data and all the compute.
So Yuri, this is what you are scared about. This is the reason you sent me that message.
Yeah, so there's a new development called AutoGPT, or Baby AGI, or Camel. There are many systems right now. And it allows, let's say, GPT-4 to become autonomous. So it shows memory, it shows complex reasoning, complex task definition, creating subtasks, and all the subtasks will be autonomously be implemented by the AI system itself, including the results, to the memory, and it can improvise its main task, all autonomously.
So it can write your thesis.
Now, it goes beyond that.
And it goes beyond that.
Yeah. So it's a big concern. And that's why Elon Musk, all these people are worried about this, right? Because they see this coming. And the question is, of course, how do you, as a policymaker at the EU level, make sense of this? First of all, you probably don't know about it. You don't experiment with it. It's a new phenomenon compared to, let's say, previous technologies, because it's autonomous and the complexity of the work it is doing at the moment. So the key question becomes, who is able to regulate this in terms of substance, right? Getting it. And that's the real issue. But it also applies in China or, let's say, in the US, right? Same.
Yeah. Yeah, but maybe the difference in China is that the government is, you can say, is one of the architects of this technique.
Yeah, they have.
And in the United States, there's big tech. So maybe if you want to control it some way or the other, then our governments themselves have to become programmers. Or is that? Yeah. Would that be the next step?
Yeah, I think you see sort of like supervisory boards. They are now bombarded with like become digitally savvy. Supervisory boards of large companies. Like you cannot control a company anymore if you're not digitally savvy. Any company, I would say, any sizable. So yeah, and with governance the same. They are and also digital literacy. It's our State Secretary of Digital Affairs. She is promoting that we start to educate ourselves and everybody sort of raise the level of digital awareness in society. Yeah, it's necessary on a broad level.
But is it already happening that governments themselves are producing this kind of technologies? Because you were saying you can see that even the legislation and technology become connected. So is this the next step? Like we have a Rijkswaterstaat or something that is organizing our physical environment, that in the end governments have to organize this digital universe as well.
What I think is, for example, in my space, in the privacy technology space, what is a really good step is there's now this new National Information Center for Privacy Enhancing Technologies. These are the right steps to take. It's people who
What does that mean?
So privacy technologies is a new strain of technology where you can collaborate on data without losing the control over that data. So we are hospitals, we want to do a multi-center study, and it's possible to work together with respect for the privacy of the patient, without losing the control over the data.
And what's the relationship with the government?
Yeah, and the government is active, and now...
Active in what way?
Actively sort of coming out with sort of the OECD, the UN, the White House, the Dutch government with this agency is called NICPAT, National Information Center for Privacy Enhancing Technology. Everybody is seeing, okay, we need to start experimenting with these technologies because these are sort of technologies for good. And by experimenting with it and involving public organizations in these experiments, we raise the level of knowledge about these technologies. And that's because implementing such a technology is not only a programming job, it's also the privacy officer needs to understand it, the architects need to understand it, the managers need to understand it. And they are sort of, you have the data sharing coalition, it's a similar, but from economische zaken, economic affair. Also just a sandbox to experiment with technology, and it's really helping. It's sort of, you create stories.
But what's the difference with, for example, an agency like the EMA on the pharmaceutical?
I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I think experiments are good. That's sort of my point. I don't know if they...
Yeah, but they're experimenting themselves.
Yeah, the governments are experimenting.
Exactly. That's what I want to... Vincent, how do you look at that?
I think I fully agree with Toon. Raising the level of knowledge at a policymaker level, and by inviting in the expertise basically to be proactively informed, and then still the pace of change is huge. So I still think that even if you do that all, you will be reactive always as a legislator. But I think that is a way to go. If we go back to the digital identity wallet, where they took on the role of product development and still they feel that they need to bring in more knowledge, so they do large-scale pilots, where they bring in public-private partnerships with all these different roles in all these different sectors that to come together and experiment with that wallet, to learn and to educate all of them to make better policy decisions.
Now one of the characteristics of Europe and especially of the Netherlands is, of course, we have this decentralized organization model. And it's not based on capitalism alone, but it has something to do with also the way InnoP works with the afsprakenstelsel, for example.
Export product.
Your product. Could this be the model for the future?
I think
an alternative to big tech and big government.
Yeah, I think it should be, and then there is of course the autonomous behavior of the algorithm. So it is us sitting here as groups and collaborating as humans versus an algorithm that can do stuff by itself and do all these tasks, and that will go on. But coming together and combining the knowledge, combining this different perspectives. I think you said also the heart and the craftsmanship into it. It will be more dominant that we need the different perspectives at the table and then come to decisions rather than
so
just
even
follow the script.
Even this decentralization is in need of a government, and you can say the architectonic power of a government. You cannot do without a government.
Maybe values, if they can sort of down the values.
Exactly.
I think that is a good summary. The government as the anchor point of values, and then we feel comfortable. Maybe you expressed it already, but I as well. I feel comfortable with our government as a guardian of an anchor point of those values. There's of course people that totally don't relate and feel threatened by that government. So there's a challenge there, but I think as I sit here, government role as anchor point and defender of those values is a role that stays.
Well, then I would also like to address the point of responsibility, because currently what the government does, I mean, I also value like my trust and everything in government, but especially with, for example, GDPR, which was a great step for all of us, but it does appeal to the individual responsibility of the collection of data, which it says, for example, that if you don't want your data to be collected, don't use the app, read the privacy policies. You know, it really comes down to the individual responsibility, and I think there the government is really lacking on taking responsibility to protect us from these harmful systems and the downfall of it. And I think there is also a matter of a language question, because we're facing so many challenges
at the same time.
At the same time, but also regarding technology. And for some reason, we kind of all filter them or compress them in this one term, privacy. And I think that's a huge risk to do, because when we, like, people feel very much detached from privacy. When a talk show opens, like, we have privacy concerns, everybody will, you know, be like, oh, damn it. Again, because it appeals to your individual responsibility. It feels like, oh my God, I did something wrong. I installed this app, but I shouldn't do. And I think there is a complete misconception of this word, where it's not kind of placing the things that we need to address, like autonomy and democracy and freedom and equality, all these very, very important values that are within this topic, or that we're talking about when we talk about privacy issues. So I would prefer, for example, to talk about data protection and, you know, how to design systems that are equal and fair and, you know, all these things. And I think data protection is already such a different phrase, because then you appeal also to the responsibility of the corporations, of the government, to protect us from being harmed by the system in any type of way. So yeah, I do kind of have complete trust in a lot of things in government, but they need to step up in many ways.
Yeah, you need a richer conceptual framework just to take a look at what is going on and see also the effects on the behavior of people, the way they live, the way they relate, etc. So privacy alone is, you can say, too much of
it's really
a narrow concept. Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of, it means everything and nothing at the same time. Same as innovation, you know, like all these things, or creativity. No, but I mean, like creativity, innovation, like it means a lot of things, but also like nothing at the same time.
I wanna read some questions. Thank you. It was a very important contribution. But we have 20 minutes left. So Statsko asks, where does the data that is used to train AI come from? Who owns this data? So did people consent to their information being used in this way? And are they seeing any benefits? So is it this is once more the question of the ownership of data. So what maybe a short response?
Well,
yeah.
GPT-4, nobody knows. It's secret.
Okay.
Right. So.
What do you think? That must end?
Well, these are very fascinating and important questions, right? Let's say IP. Do people get rewards for sharing, or let's say scraping their information? So it's not being solved. It's not an easy answer for these questions. So yeah, it's a concern. Yes.
Yeah, and I believe I also think you are more the expert, but that there are even lawsuits for AI being trained on proprietary data already, like these coding co-pilots. Mm-hmm. Now there are lawsuits against those for using proprietary code to train the model. So I think where's the data coming from? It's sometimes it's Wikipedia, and in a lot of times it's GitHub maybe, and it's ours. So
yeah,
I think that's a big problem. But where sort of the ghost is, the genie is out of the bottle, it seems.
Yeah. Other question, Vincent, about the digital wallet. And this is he asks, how can you prevent your digital wallet from being hacked?
I think the short answer is you cannot, or you should always prepare yourself that you're going to prevent it as much as possible, but be realistic. And take measures for the case it is hacked. And that is one of the things that I think gets attention also in the design right now. It is not this technology that is infallible, but there's also fraud detection and monitoring things in place that help when a hack would occur, but still in a fashion that takes control and privacy, data protection, but also privacy, as a starting point. So you can sort of monitor in a way that is super invasive, but you can also monitor in a way that is less invasive, but still detects fraud, for example. It's a bit like we do in payments as well.
Yeah, okay. Ale asks, do you think that the AI Act currently in the making would manage to tackle the various issues discussed? I don't know about the AI Act, so do you know about it, Yuri?
Not in detail, but I know about the previous guidelines, and so that's interesting. I do believe it has to be customized to a certain degree because of the new developments like AutoGPT. Right, and the nature of LLMs is quite different from, let's say, classic AI solutions. Right, in the last 50 years, basically, but let's say last 10 years, deep learning. So we have to be mindful how to customize the new rules to the nature of the medium.
Yeah. Okay. Sylvia, no? Yeah. Anything to say on the topic?
No.
Okay. Sylvia asked, I don't hear anything about the responsibility for harm done by AI systems. Do you have any suggestions on how that could be tackled? in legislation, for example?
Against harm. Okay, now that's a very interesting.
What
question.
kind of harm are we talking about? Of course.
Yeah, that's a long list, like 30 risks. But okay. Now, first of all, what's interesting. People say we cannot do a pause, right? That's what was stated.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true because we did pause a development of cloning a long time ago, effectively, and then created laws. So why not do it again? That's my question, number one. Two, how to avoid harm. Now, having a public debate, bringing the experts, right? Now, that's already happening now. With Elon Musk and Stuart Russell, all these amazing people. That's important. Give them space, give them leeway, a budget, and ways to make decisions and laws. Second, or maybe third, we have to learn from previous mistakes. In 2010, there was the first singularity moment at Wall Street. Maybe you remember in May 2010, there was a financial crash. In 1 second, right now, Wall Street went down a lot. Why? Because of AI. AI was making nonlinear decisions, and it got amplified at scale quickly. Disaster. What we have learned from that case study, 2010, is useful for now GPT, all the stuff we talk about AI right now, in terms of how to preempt key risks beforehand. By committees, governance, control mechanisms, stop modules, the layered stop mechanisms, right? So we have to implement the same thing over here, right? And besides that, we have to create not precautionary laws, so stop new developments up front, like we are doing at the EU level in some cases, but implement a precautionary principle towards new laws. That means we do small experiments in a sandbox controlled fashion in terms of AI, pilots, experimentation, and we create laws on the fly based on progressive insights. That's a workable model.
It was in a way what Toon was talking about.
Similar.
Experimenting yourself and be proactive.
Yes, but with the smartest people, right?
Yeah.
Because they are able to amplify or to test the system on the edges, right?
Fascinating. Yeah, you want to?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. 2 weeks ago, I was thinking, how can an AI escape? And now it's obvious already. Like 2 weeks later, it's totally obvious. So, to your example about the AI controlling AI, it's give an AI a browser and it can be a flight.
It's already here.
And and the problem is indeed if I say, but the function you have to optimize is that I need to be on that flight, then what is it going to do to get me on the flight? Maybe it's going to get someone else out of the flight. I don't know. So it gets crazy.
Once more, the question of control, of course.
Yeah.
It's taking control of the...
Yeah, and what is it doing to
the
optimize?
The system is taking control of itself. Yeah.
So yeah, I think I fully agree with you. Let's learn and let's. There was this indeed sort of a conference about cloning, where sort of in a short time the experts of the world came together and said these are sort of the guiding principles. I don't know, but I think there are already a lot of guiding principles about responsible AI. Yeah, let's embrace them really fast.
A question for Julia by Nai. What do you think about the recent Sony World Photography Prize that was awarded to a photographer who claimed he created a photograph using artificial intelligence?
My thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen the photo, so that's very disappointing.
I saw some photos. I think Yuri has sent me one, but they were looking amazing.
Well, using AI in a creative way. I mean, it's kind of interesting because, like, what we started this conversation with, of course, like this is the threat to creativity, for example, or to makership or being an artist. And I don't know. I mean, being honest about using it, I think that's one thing, of course. I mean, we need to talk about the licensing and the copyrights and all these kind of things behind it. So I think it's kind of questions also makership. And I think being an artist or making something like a photo with AI, I think it's interesting because there is a side of the audience and what we think of it, also with ChatGPT, but also the process of the artist making it. And like for example, for me, I start with this kind of question or wondering, or like, I want to understand, you know, how you click here and then you accept 1,000 policies all at the same time. So I kind of start digging in, and then I kind of in the end it expresses into an art installation. But it's also kind of for me the process of doing it and experiencing it and questioning it. That is for me being an artist. And if you use AI to do that, or ChatGPT, that's for me fine.
But you skip the process.
But
you skip the experience. You skip the experience of the.
Depends. It depends on how you use it. I mean, it's also art doesn't have to be politically driven per se. It can also be just, I don't know, experimenting and. So.
No, but I mean, you described the way you are searching and looking for a way to express what you are experiencing or feeling, and this exactly this process itself is skipped in the. So you could say maybe one of the fascinating things is that people are what they are because they are on the way, they're moving ahead, they are looking for something, they're in need of something.
Yeah, true. And I mean, that is what an AI never can do at this moment in time. I cannot foresee the future.
Yeah, but of course, the way we're trying to have a conversation here together is what makes us human.
Right.
Not having the answer just simply by putting a question and.
It's not kind of about the probability of the answer.
I have to disappoint you because what's now coming. So I'm also looking into the future. Of course, it's my job. We will move to fuzzy answers by AI. Right now, it's like there's this level of certainty, and it will show the probabilities.
What makes people interesting?
Yeah, so it's called humble AI, right? It's humbling AI. That's the new development. So think in terms of probabilities and being humble, so being open, openness, different perspectives, holding upon within the AI system itself. So it becomes even more human.
Humanizing AI. Yes.
No, but it becomes only about the probabilities. Right, so then it's the probability of the probability of the probability.
But it's not having the heartache. It's not having the boredom. It's not having the sadness.
But it's also. I agree. But it becomes ambidextrous, so it's able to uphold conflicting statements longer than, let's say, before.
Yeah, but it's always on the basis of information, not on the basis of existential struggle.
You have to focus on feelings, relationships.
That's the difference.
Yeah, but that is something that they can mimic. But
So you need bias.
We exist.
You need bias based on experience to make it human, and maybe AI is too objective in the end.
We have 5 minutes left. Maybe one of you wants to ask a question real life, just in a physical reality. Whoa. Yes, a real human over there.
Hi. Regarding the speed of development for ChatGPT, do you think we're nearing technological singularity?
Yuri, I think that's a question. Are we nearing?
Actually, there will be a poster talking about it along with tomorrow, but happy to share with all of you if you want. But I'm surprised. Right? I've been following this now in 2005, Singularity is near, Ray Kurzweil now. And I'm surprised what the speed, what's happening now. I was surprised, let's say half a year ago already.
Yeah.
Ray Kurzweil says we move to AGI in 2029 for now already 25 years. Yeah, it seems to be a possibility, right? And if you look at the real experts, I'm not a real expert, of course, but I know these people for a long time, 15 years now, some of them. Like Ben Gurtsel, for example, he's pretty much on the ball. He says it 5 years to go. Same. So I trust these people now.
Okay. Another question. Yeah, question over here. In the front, yeah.
Right, so during the presentation, a lot of mention was made to Elon Musk and his concerns with slowing down the progression of AI. But recently he also announced that he's planning to come up with his own to compete with ChatGPT and Bard, for example. So how do we know that these concerns are founded in the actual concerns, or it's just for a way for him to buy time so that his can catch up?
Yeah,
That's a great question. The answer is simple. Because the people that don't have a conflict of interest, like Stuart Russell, or now there are many amazing people, Jan Tallinn, for example, as well, who was also there 15 years ago, or Yukowski, as you said right now. They don't have a conflict of interest, and they say the same thing as Elon Musk. So Elon Musk has a side effect, right? It's very beneficial, I agree, right? That's a bit troublesome, I would say. But I do believe he's also really concerned, because he's been talking about this for years now, right? The last 7 years already, 8 years already. So.
Maybe he wants to know the technology and own the technology himself.
Well, he's launching a competitor, and that makes sense to a certain degree, because that's also why he bought Twitter. He wants to have a truth GPT, or truthful AI that's non-partisan. And I think that's an interesting perspective, right? That can be defended.
Okay, one more, last question. Live, yeah. Oh, yeah, over here.
What we've seen in the world of software development is that open source became a really powerful movement. Do we think that, with regards to AI, that there is a similar perspective that we as a society can actually build the AI model that we all need?
Yeah, it's in a way the same question. Yeah, can we build the AI system that we all need?
I think it's a great question, because I think open source gave us agency back. Sort of. Everybody can tinker, and I would love that it's not 3 big companies that have sort of these big models and that they are the all-knowing models. What I like about decentralized data is that you can hold it and you can allow a model trainer to visit it and train the model, and you give it access to. So you have things like federated learning and multi-party computation that allow these kind of paradigms. But whether these technologies, the privacy technologies actually, whether these are efficient enough to outcompete with a centralized company, meshing all the data and having all the compute in-house, versus doing it in a decentralized way. At the moment, doing things decentralized is not the most efficient thing. It's a thing.
But it's the winner takes it all principle.
Yeah, and I would maybe going back to the values discussion, we should encourage more decentralized activities, even though they are maybe sometimes a little bit less efficient. So I think that I would be a big proponent of that movement.
Okay, so we're at the end of our fascinating discussion. We will see what the future will bring. But I would like to thank you for your contribution to this still fascinating topic. And I would like to thank the audience for their attention, because I think it's very special to have a real-life attention and not on your iPhone. So thank you for being here, and thank you for listening carefully to our conversation. Thank you. Yeah.